It started with the little things. That's always how it goes, doesn't it? My name is Peter. I'm 43 years old. I live in Beaufort, North Carolina, and I'm a marine biologist. I spend most of my days in waders, counting spawning fish or charting currents for the State Conservation Board. I come home smelling like salt and algae. My wife, Natalie, always said that was her favorite thing about me. "You smell like the ocean," she used to say, running her fingers through my hair. That was before everything changed. Natalie runs her own event planning business. Weddings, fundraisers, baby showers, she does it all. At least, that's what she said. Lately, I wasn't so sure. She started dressing differently, more upscale. She used to live in yoga pants and messy buns, but now it was heels, curled hair, and silk blouses even for errands. She said it was about branding, always being photo-ready for clients. But she never let me take any pictures of her anymore. Her phone was always on her, always face down. She'd get texts at all hours, one of her VIP clients, she said, and then she'd laugh at something, but never tell me what it was. If I asked, she'd smile vaguely and say it was Bridezilla stuff, but it never felt funny to me. One night she left for a site visit and came back at midnight with her makeup still perfect. I was sitting on the couch pretending to read, waiting to see if she'd offer an explanation. She didn't. Just breezed past me, kissed my head, and said, "Long day, babe. Don't wait up next time." I asked her, casually, was the site on the moon? That made her laugh, but there was a pause before it, like she was deciding how to react. That pause felt louder than the answer. I started paying attention more after that. Quietly, privately. I checked our joint calendar and saw that half her appointments weren't logged anymore. She stopped sharing client names like she used to. Once, she said she was meeting a florist in Wilmington. I drove past the shop on my way home from the pier, thinking I'd surprise her. But she wasn't there. The florist said she hadn't heard from Natalie in weeks. I asked her about it later, casually, like I didn't already know. "Oh," she said, "I was darting to the sink. We rescheduled last minute. I thought I told you." She hadn't. And we both knew it. I started noticing more. Perfume on her skin when she came home late, not the kind she usually wore. Texts lighting up her screen that she'd quickly swipe away. Calls she took outside, walking circles in our backyard like she didn't want the walls to hear. One morning, I went to grab her phone to silence the alarm. It was locked now. New passcode. I didn't say anything, not yet. I couldn't. I was afraid of what might come out if I opened that door. I loved her. Or at least, I loved the version of her I used to know. I still wanted that version to come back. But a voice in my gut, the one that had helped me read weather patterns and animal behavior for 2 decades, was telling me the truth. Something was wrong. And Natalie wasn't going to tell me what it was. So I started taking notes. Small things. Patterns. Dates and times. A new cologne scent I didn't recognize. The lipstick I found in her car that she hadn't worn in years. I wasn't trying to be paranoid. I was trying to hold on to what little I had left, to make sense of the cracks in the picture I believed was perfect. Some nights, I lay next to her in bed, staring at the ceiling while she scrolled through her phone in the dark, the screen glowing on her face. I'd wonder if she was texting him or whoever he was, just inches from me. She turned over one night, whispered, "Good night, love you," and kissed my shoulder. But her lips felt colder than usual. That was the moment I stopped pretending. She wasn't kissing me goodnight. She was trying to keep me asleep. And maybe she had. But not anymore. It happened on a Tuesday night. I remember that because I was cleaning up dinner while Natalie stood in the hallway talking on her phone. I couldn't hear the words, just the tone, soft, syrupy, a little laugh that sounded too rehearsed. She said she was going to bed early, that she had a meeting the next morning. I waited 10 minutes after she disappeared down the hall before walking past our bedroom. The door was closed. No light underneath. I heard the faint buzz of her white noise machine, a new habit she'd picked up, she claimed, for better sleep hygiene. But mostly it kept her from hearing anything outside the room, including me moving quietly through the house. I wasn't trying to snoop that night. Not really. I was going to feed the dog, then do the dishes. That was it. But then I saw Natalie's tablet, her personal one, sitting on the couch armrest. Unlocked. I don't know what made me open it. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was that gut feeling that had been buzzing like a sonar ping for weeks. The screen lit up to a series of notifications. Messages. Social apps. One of them caught my eye, a name I didn't recognize. Oliver. I tapped. I wish I could say I was surprised. But I wasn't. I was just numb. The messages weren't innocent. They weren't work-related. They were full of pet names, inside jokes, heart emojis. Photos, too, selfies of Natalie I'd never seen before. Pictures of her in a hotel bathroom mirror, holding a glass of wine. One of her in a red dress I didn't recognize, captioned, "This is for you tonight." There were messages from him too. "Counting down until I see you again. I wish I could fall asleep with you next to me. That idiot husband of yours must be blind." I sat there for a long time, not blinking, not breathing. Just reading. Swiping. Reading again. There was a part of me that wanted to storm into the bedroom and demand answers. But another part, the smarter part, knew that would be a mistake. I couldn't afford a messy, emotional confrontation. I needed to be smart. Precise. I opened the file app on her tablet and created a new folder. I screenshotted every message, every picture, every flirty exchange. Anything that could prove the affair. Then I uploaded it all to a cloud drive. I even emailed copies to myself. When I was done, I turned the tablet off and set it back on the couch like nothing had happened. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there beside her in the dark, listening to the sound of her breath. She had no idea the illusion was broken. She had no idea I knew. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Her name was Marlene Vickers. I'd met her once before at a conservation fundraiser, sharp, no nonsense, the type who didn't waste time with small talk. I told her everything. Showed her the folder. She didn't flinch. "You did the right thing, Peter," she said, flipping through the screenshots. "This isn't just cheating. This is leverage. This will make a huge difference if this goes to court. What should I do next?" I asked. "Act normal," she said. "Give her nothing. Don't tip your hand. We'll build the case quietly. And when the time comes, you'll be ready." That night, I made dinner. Natalie was late again. She walked in around 9, all smiles and perfume, claiming her charity auction had run long. I didn't ask questions. I just smiled and said, "Hope it went well." She leaned over and kissed my cheek. "You're such a good man," she said. I almost laughed. The next weekend, we went to a family cookout. She held my hand in front of everyone, laughed at my uncle's terrible jokes, posed for pictures with me like nothing was wrong. But it was all wrong. Every second of it. A few nights later, I sat her down at the kitchen table. Calm. Quiet. "I know," I said. She blinked. "Know what?" "I know about Oliver. I've seen the messages. I have the pictures. I've already spoken to a lawyer." Her smile vanished. Her face tightened, jaw clenched. She looked away for a second, then back at me. "Wow," she said flatly. "So this is how it's going to be?" "I gave you chances," I said. "I asked. I waited. You lied." Natalie didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She folded her arms and said, "You were never here. Always off on the water. You stopped trying years ago." "I stopped trying," I repeated. "Right. Not the man who cooked for you, who built you an office, who paid for your entire business launch." She stood, walking to the sink. "You never understood me. You're stuck in your little fish world." "Oliver listens. Oliver makes me feel seen." "I'm sure he does," I said. "He'll make a great witness, too." That got her attention. She spun around. I sharp. "You wouldn't," she said. "I will," I said. "I already have. Every message, every photo, every date stamp. My lawyer says you should settle quietly for your own sake." She looked like she wanted to scream. But instead, she just exhaled and said, "So what now?" I stood up. "Now? Now we get a divorce." By the time we filed the papers, the silence between us had curdled into something sharp. Natalie barely looked at me anymore. When she did, it was all clipped words and cold stares, like I was a tenant who'd overstayed my welcome instead of the man she'd once promised forever to. She didn't waste any time. Within a week of being served, she hired a divorce attorney out of Raleigh. A slick guy named Brennan who wore expensive loafers and used the word equitable a lot while trying to rob me blind. Her demands came in like a punch to the gut. She wanted the beach cottage, the one my grandfather built, the one I spent 3 summers restoring with my own hands. She wanted my boat. My damn boat. The one I'd saved for over a decade to buy, the one I used every weekend to clear my head after 12-hour days tagging fish and hauling gear. And she wanted half my savings. All of it, she said, was marital property. Never mind that her business barely turned a profit until I started helping with her bookkeeping. Never mind that I covered our mortgage and utilities while she spent thousands on floral arrangements and photo shoots for her so-called brand. She framed it like she had sacrificed for me, that she supported my career, that she had put her life on hold for our marriage. Marlene just shook her head, when she saw the paperwork. They always rewrite history when money's on the line, she muttered. I tried to fight it first. I brought out the receipts, the tax records, the email where she begged me to front her business loan, the photos of Oliver, arms around her waist at a hotel in Charlotte, time-stamped 3 days after our anniversary. But it didn't matter. Brennan was good at spinning stories, and Natalie was even better at playing the victim. She cried during our first hearing, said I was emotionally distant, said I checked out long before she ever met Oliver, that I abandoned her emotionally while I was out in the field every week trying to make sure we could keep the lights on. Marlene pulled me aside after the second round of filings. Peter, she said gently, we can keep fighting, but I have to be honest with you. It's going to get uglier. You'll win, eventually, but you'll bleed for it. She's willing to drag this out until you have nothing left. I looked at the papers again, at her demands, at the house she wanted, the boat, the money. Is it worth it? Marlene asked quietly. I thought about it, about how tired I was, about how much energy it took to just stay civil during those tense meetings, how every time I saw her, I felt a little more hollow inside. No, I said finally. It's not. So I signed. I let her have it. The cottage, the boat, half the savings. Everything she wanted. I gave it all up just to be done. Natalie blinked in court when I agreed. She didn't smile, didn't gloat, just stared at me like she didn't understand what game I was playing. But there was no game. I just didn't want to be near her anymore. Didn't want to hear her voice or see her lies dressed up as legal language. When the judge stamped the final order, I felt a strange relief wash over me. Not joy, not anger, just stillness. I walked out of that courthouse with nothing but the clothes on my back and a manila folder full of signed documents. But for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the next blow to land. Natalie got what she wanted. The house, the boat, the money. But I got something too. Freedom. And that, I decided, was worth every damn penny. The cottage was hers now. So was the boat. The bank account I'd spent most of my adult life building, half of that was gone too. All I had left was a battered Toyota Tacoma, a duffel bag full of clothes, and a cheap storage unit full of marine journals and old photo albums. I found a studio apartment near the harbor, 500 square feet of creaking wood floors and peeling paint, with a bathroom the size of a broom closet. The walls were paper thin, the fridge groaned when it ran, and the mattress I bought secondhand dipped in the middle like a canoe. But it was mine. There was no Natalie's perfume clinging to the pillows. No designer vases with dead flowers by the sink. No lies hiding behind a locked phone screen. Just me, the sea breeze, and the steady hum of the harbor outside. I threw myself into work. Extra field surveys, grant applications, anything that would keep me busy. I started taking freelance contracts from nearby universities, data analysis for estuary health, sonar interpretation, oyster bed projections. It didn't pay much, but I didn't care. I liked being too tired to think. Liked the ache in my shoulders at night. The way sleep came fast and heavy after a long day hauling equipment and logging numbers. I'd bike down to the harbor on weekends and watch the charter boats drift in, ropes clanging against hulls, gulls circling overhead. One day I spotted an old rowboat at a junkyard, half-rotted and weather-stained, listed for $100. I bought it without thinking, hauled it home in the back of my truck, and started sanding it down in the alley behind my apartment. It wasn't much, but it gave me something to fix, something that couldn't lie to me. The place came together slowly. I got a second-hand couch with springs that didn't squeal, a coffee table from a pawn shop with water rings already built in. I painted the walls a dull sea glass green and tacked up a map of the Carolina coast above my desk. My luxury? A battered coffee maker I found at a yard sale and a tin of good beans I splurged on once a month. That was my life. Cheap, quiet, bare bones. And yet, for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was constantly bracing for something. There was no passive-aggressive silence at dinner, no carefully worded texts, no perfume-slicked lies, just peace. Boring, beautiful peace. I still saw Natalie sometimes, not in person, but online. Mutual friends would tag her in posts, always glowing, always smiling, always standing next to Oliver with his arm around her waist like he belonged in the home I used to mow the lawn for every Saturday. They turned the beach cottage into a backdrop for their new life. Sunday brunch at our little slice of heaven, she captioned one picture. I recognized the plate. It was mine. Well, it had been. Another post showed Oliver driving my boat, sunglasses on, grinning like a man who thought he'd won something. And maybe he had. He'd gotten the house, the woman, the lifestyle. But he also got everything that came with it. Natalie's high expectations, her endless need to be adored, her silent punishments when things didn't go her way. I wondered how long the gloss would last. I didn't comment, didn't react. Just closed the app and went back to my rowboat, my spreadsheets, my quiet. Sometimes people asked if I missed her. No, I'd say, I miss who I thought she was. That version of Natalie, the one who used to bring me coffee on stormy mornings, who laughed when I came home soaked in seawater, who held my hand when I talked about building an education center on the pier, she didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did. I was broke now, half drowned in bills, eating off mismatched plates and fixing my own plumbing. But I was finally building something for myself, stripped of illusions, stripped of pretense. There were no more secrets in my home, no more games. Just me, a space heater, and a little rowboat slowly coming back to life. And honestly, that felt like enough. It happened on a Thursday, the kind of day that didn't feel like it would matter. Overcast, muggy, with the smell of diesel drifting up from the harbor. I had just wrapped a morning survey, and my hands were still damp from pulling net samples. My back ached. My phone buzzed with a payment reminder for the electric bill. Same routine, different day. I stopped by the corner store on the way home, mostly for coffee. But while I was waiting in line behind a tourist arguing over the price of bottled water, I saw the scratch-off display by the register. I hadn't bought one in years. $2, I thought. Why not? The guy behind the counter handed it over without a word. I shoved it in my pocket and didn't think about it again until later that night, when I was sitting at my desk eating leftover fish tacos and trying to finish a data sheet. My desk lamp flickered. My eyes burned. I grabbed the ticket, found a nickel, and started scratching it lazily between bites. No rush. No expectations. 3 matching numbers. I blinked. 3 matching numbers again. Then the words, jackpot, $8 million. I stared at it for a full minute, frozen, mouth half open, taco forgotten on the plate. Then I laughed. One short bark of disbelief. There had to be a catch. I checked the back of the ticket twice. Then went online, cross-checked the game rules, the symbols, the payout process. I took a picture of the ticket, then another. Then I locked it in my desk drawer and didn't sleep a single second that night. The next day, I drove 2 hours to the regional lottery office, gripping the envelope the entire way like it might dissolve if I looked away. They confirmed it within an hour. I was a millionaire. I didn't scream, didn't cry. I just sat in the car afterward, hands on the steering wheel, staring out at a Taco Bell parking lot like it held the secrets of the universe. $8 million. I didn't tell anyone, not a soul. I drove straight home, pulled the blackout curtains, and made 3 phone calls, one to a financial advisor, one to an estate lawyer, and one to Marlene, who just laughed for a full minute when she heard the news. I knew life owed you something, she said. Looks like it finally paid up. Within a week, the paperwork was filed. I claimed the winnings under a blind trust. The check was deposited through a specially created LLC. I set up layers of protection so thick, not even Natalie could sniff it out. I didn't go on a shopping spree. Didn't buy a yacht or a private jet. I did 3 things. First, I moved. Found a quiet little seaside cabin 30 minutes up the coast. Nothing flashy, just 2 bedrooms, a back deck that faced the ocean, and a garage where I could keep my rowboat and tools. The landlord was an old fisherman who didn't ask questions. I bought the place in cash. Second, I upgraded my truck. Not to something flashy, just a newer Tacoma with working AC and good tires. The kind of vehicle that didn't break down on the highway every time it hit 70. Third, I invested. Carefully. With help. Blue chip stocks, conservation funds, and a chunk of it toward a local marine science scholarship under an anonymous donor name. And then, I kept living. Same early mornings, same harbor, same salt in my hair. The only difference was that I no longer felt like the tide was always against me. I could breathe. I took afternoons off sometimes just to walk the beach. I cooked more. I started reading again. I even finished fixing the rowboat and took it out one Saturday morning, the wood gleaming with fresh varnish, the oars dipping into the glassy water like they belonged there. Every now and then, I'd see another social media post from Natalie. Brunches, selfies, Oliver grinning next to her while they posed on my deck, on my boat, with my things. I didn't click anymore. I just kept scrolling. They had no idea I wasn't broke anymore. And I liked it that way. The best part? I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Not Natalie. Not Oliver. Not even myself. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was surviving someone else's storm. I was standing on my own shore, calm, quiet, and completely, undeniably free. It had been 6 months since the money hit my account. 6 months since I moved out of that cramped apartment and into my quiet cabin by the water. The rowboat was finished. The fish studies were steady. My days were peaceful in a way they hadn't been in years. And then she showed up. It was a Thursday, late afternoon. I was out back, sanding down a crate for gear storage when I heard the tires crunch over the gravel. Not local. Too smooth, too clean. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked around the corner just as a black rental SUV rolled to a stop. The door opened, and there she was, Natalie. Hair done up, makeup flawless, sunglasses perched on top of her head like she'd just stepped out of a magazine. She was wearing a light gray dress, high-end but casual enough to pretend it wasn't. But what caught my eye wasn't the outfit, it was the smile. Fake. Wide. Performed. "Peter," she said, stepping toward me like we were old friends who'd drifted apart, not ex-spouses who'd clawed each other to shreds in mediation. "What are you doing here?" I asked, voice flat. She shrugged like it was nothing. "Just in the area. Thought I'd stop by. I heard you moved out this way." "No one gave you that information," I said, folding my arms. She laughed lightly, brushing imaginary lint from her sleeve. "Small world. Word gets around." I didn't respond. She looked around the cabin, the bay behind me, the rowboat propped on its stand. Her eyes swept over the place like she was cataloging it for resale. "This is nice," she said. "Simple. Very you. What do you want, Natalie?" She sighed, like I'd ruined the scene. "Look, I know things got tense, but I thought maybe we could talk. Clear the air." I let the silence stretch between us until she finally cut to the chase. "I know about the lottery," she said, her voice sharper now. "Don't worry, I don't care about the money." That was a lie. You could see it in the way her jaw clenched, in the way her eyes darted around like she was already calculating. "I just think," she continued, "it would be fair to acknowledge that some of that windfall came, indirectly, from our marriage." I tilted my head. "How so?" "Well, the ticket was purchased during the tail end of our split, right?" "No," I said. "It was purchased a month after the divorce was finalized." "You want the timestamp?" "I've got the receipt." She blinked, caught off guard. "I mean," she recovered quickly, "even if it was technically post-divorce, you wouldn't have been in that store if it weren't for everything that happened. The breakup. The move. All of it led you to that moment. You want credit for my bad luck turning into good luck," I said. "I want what's fair," she replied, her voice icy now. "And don't pretend your lawyer didn't advise you to keep this quiet. You deliberately filed that trust to hide the winnings." "To protect myself," I said. "From this exact conversation." She dropped the smile completely. "I'm serious, Peter. I put years into our marriage. I supported you. I helped you build." "You cheated on me, Natalie." She flinched at that. Just a flicker, but it was there. "You took the house, the boat, half my savings, and smiled while you did it. You made sure I walked away with nothing. Now I've got something again, and you come crawling back like you deserve a piece." Her voice rose, sharp and clipped. "I deserve something for the emotional investment I made. For the years I spent beside you while you buried yourself in that fish nonsense." I stepped forward, calm but firm. "You walked away. You made that choice. And now you want to rewrite the story." She crossed her arms. "If we can't resolve this amicably, I'll take it to court." I nodded slowly. "Then I guess I'll see you there." She opened her mouth like she had more to say, but nothing came out. Her eyes flicked around again, not at the cabin, not at the boat, but at the calm, the quiet, the life I had without her. She turned and walked back to the car. As she climbed in, she said one last thing through the open window. "You're not the only one who knows how to fight dirty, Peter." I didn't answer. Just watched as she drove away, tires spitting gravel, the clouds thickening above. I knew what was coming next. She was going to try and take what wasn't hers, again. Only this time, I was ready. I arrived at the courthouse 30 minutes early. I didn't want to risk traffic, or parking, or being rushed. I wanted to sit, to breathe, to look her in the eyes with nothing but stillness in mind. Natalie showed up in a white pantsuit. Probably thought it made her look calm and collected. A victim, even. But I could see the tension in her jaw, the tight grip on her designer handbag, the way she kept scanning the hall for Oliver, who, as far as I could tell, hadn't come. Typical. Her lawyer, Brennan, greeted her like they were old friends. He spotted me a few seconds later and gave a nod like this was just business. Like he wasn't here trying to carve up something that didn't belong to her. Marlene showed up exactly 2 minutes before the hearing. No frills, no nonsense. Just her usual black slacks and a thick folder under one arm. "They're bluffing," she said, settling in next to me on the bench. "But we're going to crush them anyway." I didn't respond. I was too busy watching Natalie pace. When we were called in, the courtroom was mostly empty. A few folks in the back waiting for traffic tickets or custody reviews. No one paying attention to the drama unfolding up front. That was fine by me. The judge, a middle-aged woman named Judge Kellerman, read through the case file quickly. She didn't waste time. She looked at Natalie and said, "So you're filing a claim for a portion of Mr. Wyatt's lottery winnings, is that correct?" Natalie sat up straighter. "Yes, Your Honor. I believe I'm entitled to a share of the prize." "And on what grounds?" the judge asked. Her voice was perfectly rehearsed. "I was married to Mr. Wyatt for over 10 years. We built a life together. I supported his career. The ticket was purchased within weeks of our divorce, during a time when our financial lives were still intertwined. I believe I deserve a portion, if not half, of the funds." Kellerman turned to Marlene. "Counselor." Marlene stood, calm as ever. "Your Honor, the ticket was purchased 27 days after the divorce was finalized. We have the receipt, timestamp, and surveillance footage of the purchase. The winnings were claimed through a legally formed trust, and all funds have been documented as acquired solely post-divorce. This is not marital property. This is an attempt to retroactively attach value to a relationship that, by law, has already been dissolved." Brennan stood up. "If I may." "You may not," Judge Kellerman interrupted. "I'd like to hear from Mr. Wyatt directly." I stood, palms dry but heart hammering. I kept my voice steady. "The day I bought that ticket, I had $34 in my bank account," I said. "I was living in a rundown apartment, rebuilding my life from scratch after losing everything in the divorce, the house, the boat, half my savings. I didn't expect to win anything. It was a whim, bought with pocket change." I looked at Natalie then. She left with everything. And now that I have something again, she wants another slice. "Mr. Wyatt," the judge said, "were there any ongoing financial entanglements at the time of the ticket purchase?" "No, ma'am. None. We had fully separated assets." She nodded. "Thank you." Then came the part I'd been waiting for. Natalie took the stand. Brennan led her gently, prompting her to describe her sacrifices, her emotional investment, her time spent supporting my Marine career. She cried. A single tear, carefully dabbed with a tissue. Said she felt blindsided. Said I had been withholding the truth from her. Then Marlene stood. "Mrs. Wyatt." "Excuse me, Ms. Wyatt. Can you tell the court where you were living at the time of the lottery ticket purchase?" She blinked. "In the beach house. The house awarded to you in the divorce." "Yes." "Were you in contact with Mr. Wyatt during that time?" "No." "Did you know he was living in a studio apartment with no furniture and barely enough to pay his electric bill?" Natalie shifted in her seat. "That's not my fault. Did you or did you not voluntarily end the marriage in order to be with another man, Mr. Oliver Gaines?" "Objection," Brennan shouted, but the judge overruled. Natalie's voice dropped. "That's not relevant." "It is," Marlene said coolly. "When you're trying to claim you're entitled to the fortune of a man you discarded." No further questions. Natalie didn't say another word. Just sat there, fuming. The judge excused us while she deliberated. It took 20 minutes. She returned with a ruling so direct it could have been etched in stone. This court finds that the lottery winnings in question are not and never were marital property. The petitioner's claim is denied. Natalie didn't cry this time. She didn't speak. She just stared straight ahead, blinking like the air had been knocked out of her. Outside the courthouse, Marlene patted my shoulder. "Clean. Precise. No wiggle room." "She's going to try something else," I said. "Then we'll be ready," she replied. I looked up at the sky, clear and bright and quiet. The kind of sky you don't notice when you're always looking down. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was defending my life. I was reclaiming it. 2 weeks after the court ruling, a letter arrived at my cabin. No return address. Just my name in that familiar, dramatic script Natalie used whenever she wanted to appear formal. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a single page. "Peter, let's put all this behind us. I have a proposal I think you'll want to hear. Something meaningful. I'm working with an ocean conservation group to develop a sanctuary off the coast, something that aligns perfectly with your background and expertise. Let's meet. No lawyers. No drama. Natalie. I read it twice, then laughed. A marine sanctuary? Natalie couldn't tell the difference between a flounder and a folding chair. There was no way she was getting into environmental projects without an angle. And knowing her, that angle had dollar signs all over it. I called Marlene. She's trying something, I said. Wants to meet about a conservation project. Marlene chuckled darkly. Well, I hope she brings her best outfit. Because we're going to stage a meeting. And she's going to walk right into it. We made a plan. I reached out to 2 people I trusted from the State Marine Board, folks who owed me a favor and didn't mind pretending to be investors for a good cause. We reserved a small conference room at a business hotel in Wilmington. Marlene arranged for everything to be recorded. I texted Natalie back. Curious. Let's talk. Thursday, 10 a.m. Bring your proposal. She showed up exactly on time. Hair curled, makeup flawless, leather binder clutched like it held the key to the future. She breezed into the room and gave me a dazzling smile, completely ignoring the 2 investors seated at the table beside me. Peter, she beamed. Thank you for being open-minded. I nodded. So, the sanctuary? She launched into it. A 10-minute speech about building an eco-conscious marine hub off the coast of Topsail Island. She name-dropped fake nonprofit partners, tossed out buzzwords like sustainability, grant funding, and public-private partnership. She even pulled out charts, printed mock-ups of a research center, cabins for volunteers, drone programs for surveying fish populations. It would have sounded impressive if you didn't know what you were listening to. The fake investors asked smart questions, stuff Natalie clearly didn't understand. Her answers got shakier the more they pressed. She started improvising. Then she started lying. We watched her corner herself in a web of jargon and promises she couldn't back up. And then she handed over the final piece. A forged letter from a supposed foundation promising startup funding, with my name listed as a co-signatory. I didn't even have to say anything. I just leaned forward and slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside, proof of the falsified document, screenshots of emails she doctored, and a notarized letter from the actual foundation confirming they'd never spoken to her. She went pale. Her fingers trembled as she leafed through the evidence. What is this? She whispered. This, I said, is your last performance. And your last lie. Marlene stepped in from the hallway. She'd been listening through the door the entire time, a recorder in hand. Hi, Natalie, she said, smiling. Just so you're aware, everything said in this room was legally recorded with consent from all parties, except you, of course. But since this qualifies as attempted fraud and forgery of financial documents, the authorities will be very interested regardless. Natalie's mouth opened, then shut. She stood slowly, still holding the folder, like it might vanish if she set it down. You wouldn't dare, she muttered. I already did, I said. The email went out 5 minutes ago. Law enforcement's on their way to pick up a copy of your proposal. Natalie didn't scream, didn't cry. She just looked at me with pure, seething hatred, the kind of rage people have when they realize they're finally out of tricks. The fake investors stood up and left without a word. Marlene followed, holding the recorder like a trophy. And Natalie? She walked out the door in silence. 2 weeks later, the charges landed: attempted fraud, forgery, and misrepresentation of business funding. It didn't matter that it was her first offense. The evidence was airtight. Word spread quickly. Her client list dried up overnight. The social media post stopped. Friends vanished. Oliver? He bailed the second things got ugly. I heard through the grapevine he moved to Florida with someone who owned a yoga studio. I watched it all from the quiet of my porch. No celebration. No vindication. Just a deep, long breath of air that didn't carry her name anymore. The final chapter wasn't about revenge. It was about peace. And for the first time since the day she put that ring on her finger, I finally had it.